We're getting into it right away, Anthony. We got Bill Miller here, the president and CEO of the American Gaming Association, with us for the next 10 minutes. Bill, so great to see you. I know you've been working really hard. The casino industry is on the precipice of the big comeback. They're getting ready to open. What are you seeing in the trenches every day, sir?
Well, we're trying. First of all, Glenn and Anthony, happy to be on the show. It's been a long. It's hard to believe that the industry was at its apex really back in February and early March, and we've gone from an incredibly vibrant industry to one in which it's almost completely shut down. But as you mentioned in the open, we're starting to see the green shoots, and I think that's an exciting thing. We're up to now, just about 100 casinos in America that have begun to that are open today. But that's out of 989, so we've got a long way to go. It's a process. It's a process that every one of our operators is committed to obviously creating a healthy and safe environment, both for the employees as well as the patrons. And we want to make sure that it complies with CDC guidelines and provides the right kind of atmosphere so people can enjoy themselves, be entertained, and do it safely and in a healthy manner.
Yeah. What is the biggest question you're getting right now from operators that they're asking for you to assist them with?
Well, I think that one of the biggest questions is, it's spacing, right? I mean, in the casino industry, and much like with sports venues, what is your capacity has been previously determined by somebody like the fire marshal. And so now we're in a dynamic where, our industry, which is one that has kind of, worked on kind of how do you create the most opportunities to enjoy the property, is going to be reduced significantly because of social distancing and those sorts of things. And so there are a number of different things. Look, every jurisdiction is different. The AGA, we represent commercial as well as tribal casinos. And so the tribal, they're state sovereigns. And so they have their own set of regulations. They typically follow the federal CDC guidelines and those sorts of things. But the states are all a little bit different, and all of the properties are a little bit different. So the architecture and kind of the nature of the state and those sorts of things are going to all be the different. So, I realize you asked me a pretty straightforward question. The answer is they're asking about all sorts of different things, all relating to, what is the experience going to be like? How can we move forward? And how can we make sure that we do it in a way that the patrons understand is safe?
Right, because you're in a business that's a little bit more intimate than the typical hotel business. We've been talking a lot about physical distancing and stuff, and that's not really possible in the casino resort environment. In fact, you want everybody down there together doing things, spending their money, actively participating in what's going on, which is very different than me going away with my spouse, for example, and sitting in a room on a beach at a resort. So we're going to be having on John Flynn with MGM to talk about what they're going to be doing in their 7-point plan that's coming up. But how, Bill, do you see creating consumer confidence so you guys could make that journey back to where you were just a few short months ago?
Well, it's interesting and important that you mentioned kind of the hotel industry and kind of the hospitality industry. I'm fortunate to sit on the board of U.S. Travel Association. We, as an industry, have worked very closely with the folks in the travel and tourism industry, hospitality, restaurants, retail, because a lot of the challenges are similar. But you point out an important difference, and that is that part of the casino experience is social. And how do you recreate that in a dynamic with social distancing?
Right.
And we're going to have some fits and starts around it. I mean, I think that the many of the dynamics, whether it's MGM's plan, Wynn's plan, Las Vegas Sands plan, all of the operators have in essence created a plan, but they're all going to take on some different changes as we move forward on this, because we're going to see how the patrons respond, and that whether every other slot machine is the right kind of dynamic, whether putting plexiglass between the dealer and the people that are playing blackjack, separating every other chair. Those sorts of things are all going to be the initial things that are done, driven primarily by health and safety guidelines, but they're also going to kind of whether or not the patrons respond to it and how they respond to it's going to be really, really part of the equation.
Are you seeing that casinos are asking their dealers and their employees to wear masks, or is that optional?
I think it varies jurisdiction by jurisdiction, but I think that primarily what you will see is employees that are public facing wearing masks.
Yes, and I think one of the things is we have to be fluid here, right, Bill? It's all about figuring out what's right. What's going to work in the initial phases of the reopening might be something completely different than 2, 3, 4 months from now. As people begin to get more comfortable, as confidence comes back, it seems like some of these things that are going to be implemented at the onset have the opportunity to maybe be changed, maybe loosened up a little bit. I know for one, I look forward to getting back to that craps table, having everybody around me and saying no whammies, and shooting that dice and hitting my point, you know?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the social experience where, perfect strangers become best friends with someone rolling hot dice is something that we long to see come back and absolutely believe it will come back. Part of it's confidence among the public. Part of it is and that confidence comes from, number one, is there better therapeutics to make sure that if you get the coronavirus, there's an adequate and quick treatment for it. And then two, obviously, if we get to a place where we have a vaccine in the near term, we will begin to, get people to feel more comfortable in close environments. And I think that, the gaming industry is facing this as well as all the sports leagues because a stadium is designed not for social distancing. It's designed to include a lot of people in a small amount of space. And we have similar dynamics around that, that we are going to figure out, and it's going to be figure out, it's health and safety first, second, and third, but then it's what's the consumer experience and do they see that, that the property's committed to sanitary standards and can they physically see it? Do they kind of intellectualize it and have those visual cues that make them go, you know what, this place is safe and it's fun. And that's what I want to be part of.
Right. I know you're on a tight schedule. Sorry, Anthony, go ahead.
Go ahead.
But I think their initial entry into the casino is going to set the tone. So the second they get in and they see those visual cues, they're going to forget about everything. Because one great thing about casinos, you don't go to casinos, it's not like going to the beach. You want to be separated and just take the sun and relax and have a margarita. When you go to a casino, you want to be around people and you want that energy, like Glenn said. So it's really, I think, as soon as you walk in, the first 50 feet of walking in the casino is going to set the tone. And if you don't get it there, you're not going to get it.
Agree. We spent a lot of time kind of since everything was shut down to begin to talk about and survey the public and survey kind of what is it that makes them feel more comfortable. And I think that we're going to continue that's going to be an evolving dynamic. I think that right now we probably have a third of the American public, the American adult population that will do damn near anything. They'll get on an airplane, they'll go on a cruise ship, they're happy to go in a casino because they're stuck and for whatever reason, they're excited to get out. And I think the balance of the American public has to be convinced that, this is safe and that the commitments are being made to ensure they're in the best possible manner, creating a healthy and safe environment, a sanitized environment so they can have fun, because that's the whole reason why we do this.
And I got to say, because we've got just about a minute left before you have to go, I'm sure you're pretty proud of a lot of the major casino companies out there that have retained staff on the paychecks and all of that kind of stuff, on the payroll, I meant to say. It's pretty impressive that a lot of these major companies were able to do this for such a long period of time.
Well, it is. I'm blessed and honored to have this job running the American Gaming Association. We have some amazing companies, all of which have faced doggone near cataclysmic financial hardship, and what they've done to try and do everything that they can to retain their employees, to keep people connected to payroll in some way. Haven't all been able to do everything that we've wanted to. But and we've worked really hard with the Congress, and I have to say, everybody bashes Congress and the administration all the time. this industry had been previously excluded in every relief bill, post Katrina, post Superstorm Sandy, 2008, 2009, and post 9/11. And we weren't excluded this time. And it's because we've really done a good job as an industry, and our employers have done a good job in the communities to really be parts of those communities. And that's why we got the support we did from Congress. And I think it's the reflection and the appreciation that you just mentioned about what our employers have done in light of the massive financial harm that they've all suffered. It's pretty inspiring. So,
what are some of the casinos? I know you got to go, but what are some of the casinos that are open right now? So, in case somebody's listening and they want to go run and play some blackjack,
or Anthony wanting to go play poker, maybe you could suggest a place in upstate New York that might be open right now.
Look, the bulk of the casino properties that are open are tribal casinos, but we're also, we had some big ones. On Monday, Louisiana opened, and Louisiana is a big gaming market, and so we're starting to see, clearly, everybody is waiting to see, when Nevada opens, when New Jersey opens. And I think that we're getting pretty close. And I think that as we were working every day with the regulators to try and kind of help inform them about best practices and policies. I think one of the things that is one of the things that I've talked a lot about in my now 15, 16 months as CEO of AGA is payments and modernizing payments in terms of, because cash, has a stigma attached to it in this industry for historical reasons. But I actually think that the acceleration to kind of contactless payment, digital payments is something that really has some additional momentum around it because of the cleanliness and hygiene element. So I think that there are a lot of things that are going to be different. We're going to kind of struggle through kind of the short and midterm, but I'm confident in this industry. I think that this industry has proved itself time and time again that it's resilient. And now that we're in 43, almost 45 states now, it's pretty clear that the state governments recognize the importance of the industry, and so I look forward to an exciting, although challenging, continued time for the industry in the short term, but in a really exciting future for us too.
Just don't take my chips away.
We're figuring out a way to sanitize them for sure.
Yeah, that's not up to Bill. That's probably up to our next guest to take your chips away. Bill Miller, thank you so much for being here. Really honored that you've been here. Let's get right into our next guest.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we are back now with John Flynn, VP of Administration and Head of MGM's Health and Safety Strategy, MGM Resorts International. John Flynn, so great that you are here today. First, I'd like to say, hey, thanks for getting rid of those parking fees in Vegas. I know all my drive-to friends are very happy about that one. I think that's just the right type of thing to get people to come back out as you start to open your resorts.
Yeah, thanks, gents. Thanks for having me. And we fully agree. And we think as we look at ramping up here in Vegas, in the next couple of weeks, we'll let the governor and the gaming commission decide on that. But yeah, we could get a lot of drive-in traffic from California, a lot of drive-in traffic from Arizona. So I think another way to entice them to come to Vegas, see the new floors, see the new initiatives that we're doing, we're going to definitely take advantage of those.
Amazing how much work you folks have been doing behind the scenes to get ready, right, Anthony?
Well, I have a million questions for you, but the first question is, you were in the Air Force, I was in the Air Force. They let you fly planes. They didn't let me fly planes. I want to know why.
Well, they don't let me fly planes anymore. And the key thing, Anthony, is it's not really flying the planes that matters; it's landing the planes that matter.
Well, thank you for your service. So what are the 7 initiatives?
Let's set that up. I don't think people even know what this is all about. So MGM Resorts, as part of the reopening plan for all of the resorts, have initiated what they call a 7-point safety plan. All sorts of different steps that they're making to make sure that their employees are safe, that their customers are safe, but also, and I think most importantly, to make sure that people are comfortable and are ready to get back to feeling normal.
Yeah, that's right, Glenn. I mean, you hit all the key points right there. And when we talk about, the 7-point safety plan, that just tees up several other, literally hundreds, if not thousands of new things that we're doing or things we were already doing that we're going to enhance. So I think the first thing that you'll see when you show up on our properties, especially for our employees, is we're doing employee screening, employee training, and we're also doing thermal scanning, temperature scanning of our employees just to make sure that they're comfortable, that they're safe. And quite frankly, it's something that they have asked for. And so I'm glad that we were already doing that in the first place. I think the next part, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and you folks are getting help from the city. It's not just MGM, but some of the other resorts are all taking part in the plan, so everybody could get tested before coming back to work to create that initial level of confidence.
That's right. It was a citywide initiative that we announced yesterday. It's great to see the industry being able to partner together, even though they're competitors, but they're colleagues as well. And then you got to also tip, with it's Caesars, it's Boyd, it's MGM Resorts, got the culinary involved. We got University Medical Center, Southern Nevada, Las Vegas Convention Center. Huge initiative. Want to try to get as many employees tested as possible before they show back up to work.
So the employees are being asked to take the test, but it's voluntary, or are they being told they need to take it before they come back to work?
For MGM, it is a voluntary initiative. So they can go asymptomatic. They can go onto the website, log in, set up their test, and go and get tested, and it's free of charge, of course.
That's great.
Yep. And so go ahead.
All right, no, I just got a lot of people very excited to be able to come back to your resorts and other resorts that are near in their neighborhoods and stuff like that. But let's get into, before we start, and guys, I know you're asking questions out there. I love all the questions that you're asking. Please keep asking them. But before we get to them, I want us to go through this 7-point plan, what people could really expect, what's going to be different. But before that, you're not going to be opening up all the properties at once. There's it depends on jurisdictions and what the guidance is in those jurisdictions. I think you're going to be doing Beau Rivage next week, for example, correct? And then in Las Vegas, maybe start with New York, and was it Bellagio? And you could take it from there, sir.
That's right. I'm actually sitting in Tunica right now at Gold Strike here in Mississippi.
Hey, that's awesome.
Well, in 24 hours from now, we have an invite-only opening up the floor to a few hundred people because we want to take this slowly, which is great. Open to the public May 25th, but we have a couple hundred employees that are getting trained up right now on a lot of the new initiatives that we're doing. We've got some plexiglass barriers being installed to all of our restaurants that are going to be open are all getting teed up to make sure that we have the proper social distancing in effect. We're also going to be wearing masks. We're going to be offering other sorts of PPE, these masks to our customers as they come through. So those are some of the things you're going to see here in Mississippi. Now, to your point on Las Vegas, that is still to be announced in terms of when we're permitted to open.
Right. And just to be clear, it has nothing to do with MGM policy. You're seeking guidance from the legislature, the governor's office in particular.
Governor, Gaming Control, that's right. So, but when we do get permission to open, that's going to be Bellagio, New York to start.
Excellent.
Yeah, and it's so critical because everyone right now is looking at Vegas, period. Everybody I speak to, everybody's watching you. Everybody's watching Vegas. And do you feel that? Do you feel like we have one shot to do this right? Not only for the safety of our employees and safety for our guests, which is paramount, but also to give everyone else around the country kind of a game plan and kind of show them this can be done if it's done smartly, like you're doing a pre-opening, with your VIPs, and you're getting everyone tested. So you're really showing people this is the roadmap. Do you feel that people are looking at you guys?
Anthony, we do. We take that sort of responsibility very seriously. As you know, we're a highly regulated industry as it is. So if you take what the societal norms are in any jurisdiction you're in, and then you raise the bar a couple of levels, that's where we set our standard at. So across the board, everything from the casino and some of the mechanisms that you guys were talking about with Bill earlier, to within each of our restaurants, to the enhanced cleaning and the antiviral and disinfecting programs that we were doing before, but we're doing even more so in our hotel rooms now. Those are going to be paramount. But also, one thing that Bill mentioned before was the idea around we're trying to eliminate as many cash transactions as possible, so that you go to more of that digital solution. So checking in, You're going to get your digital key,
Love
right?
that.
You're going to get more things that are online. We're trying to reduce those sorts of initiatives. So when you show up at a buffet here, like at Gold Strike, right? Buffet, 3-hour wait time. Sometimes the past you think about, geez, 3-hour wait time, social distancing and all that. Everybody's been to Disneyland, you get the fast pass. That's the sort of initiative that we're looking at. So if you show up at 5 p.m., 2-hour wait, you get a 7:30 ticket to come back so you don't have to wait in line. So we're doing things like that across the board and we're also doing queuing, digital queuing. We're doing digital menus for our food and beverage. And also one thing that isn't really talked about that much is how people are utilizing their air conditioning systems and making sure that they're bringing in the right amount of outside fresh air and cycling that out as often as possible. So that's the stuff that we've done. We've done that with our filtration systems, just basically across the board, like you were saying, Anthony. We do take this responsibility very seriously, and we want to go slow so that we can go fast.
As an operation guy, I love that statement. We want to go slow so we can go fast. I wish everyone understood what that meant, because that is so critical. But as an operation guy, faced with these challenges, the first question I would be is my IT department, my tech department, because a lot of the things that you've had to implement, I would imagine, are third-party initiatives, but that you probably had to write some code and some technology to get open so you can go fast. Have you had to take some of that technology in-house and write some of this code and some of this, some of these new things that you're doing in-house?
Some of that has been done. It's an investment that our senior leadership team decided to make well over a year ago, and we definitely accelerated it in the last couple of months. Atif Rafiq, our president of commercial and growth, and his digital team and what they're doing behind the scenes is pretty amazing to be able to get a lot of these initiatives done in about 30 to 45 days. So I think it's a partnership with a couple of outside third-party vendors that we're always in lockstep with. But it's also something that we have grown internally, so we have that organic capability moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that's critical, and that's why it's so important to show people what you're doing, because a lot of people don't have the capabilities you guys have, and to share that technology, I think that's really critical. And I don't know, for some reason, as an operation guy, that's been. I was wondering how you guys were doing it so quickly, because I don't think people understand how quickly you had to pivot. And being a military guy and being a pilot, you understood that in order to move fast, you have to go slow. It's all in the preparation. It's all in the detail. It's all ensuring from the plane to healthy, mentally healthy, physically healthy, to get out there so you can move fast. And I just think that Vegas is more positioned to do that than anyone.
So let's go through some of these things.
Yep.
Screening, temperature checks, and employee training. So you're putting in all of these protocols. You asking guests to stay home if they have related symptoms. Medical and security personnel on staff will be able to assist should a guest develop symptoms while staying at one of your resorts. Does that mean getting people's temperatures as they come in a way that you can get it done but not make them feel uncomfortable?
Yeah, that's a great question, Glenn. And I think there's, as you were talking about with Bill, there's sort of this, this is unprecedented.
That's right.
So we're trying to figure out like what's the right way to be able to still provide the fun, the lifelong experiences that people have come to appreciate and love about MGM Resorts in Las Vegas specifically. But how do we do that in a safe mechanism where people can come and somewhat let their guard down? Okay. So I think there are some things that we are doing on the mask side where we're going to strongly encourage guests to wear masks. We're going to offer that for them. We have a great development team behind the scenes that has built these new hand washing stations. And so in the past, we've always wanted people and our employees back of house on their breaks, and then guests front of house to go use the restrooms. But it's a little bit of a walk to get there. So how do you encourage hand washing when you got to get up from the table and go walk 30 seconds to a minute and then come back? That's just not conducive to the sort of new mechanisms that we want to provide. So we've actually built these new stations that will be in the plumbing system right there on the casino floor. That's going to have hand sanitizer. It's going to have actual, sinks with paper towels, and not like the old beach ones where you pump it with your foot. I mean, this thing is tied into the facilities, which is really, really good. We're going to offer gloves as well for guests that want to be able to use them. And so it's just sort of this litmus test where I think what we really want to do is we want to be able, like I said, go slow to go fast. And we would rather move slowly forward a little bit at a time, and then over time, see how society adapts.
And the training that goes into talking to your guests about these new procedures, like if I don't want to wear a mask, because I will wear a mask, but somebody next to me doesn't want to wear a mask, And how does an employee get that person to wear a mask in a very service-oriented, very kind way without upsetting the guest?
Yeah, I mean, and I think as we talk through this, we're saying that we're all in this together. There's a lot of things that we're going to do on the MGM resort side, but there's going to be some things that we're going to ask our customers to do as well. I think the airlines are running in that similar scenario where you're asking guests or they're requiring guests to get on the plane with the masks on. They sit down, they take the mask off. Where's the balance there? So I think for us, the way that we've looked at it is there are a couple of circumstances where you're going to probably be a little bit more direct in terms of asking people to put on a mask. For example, getting into an elevator, right? I think that would be a circumstance where we're going to train certain employees to strongly encourage and or make sure that the guests have that along with our occupancy limits. So if you can imagine the different number of interactions that happen on an integrated resort every day, we've thought through every single one of those. But I think it's one of those things that it's going to be a team effort. We're going to do it in a hospitable and a polite way. But it is something that we're focused on. And I got hundreds of employees going through that training right now at Gold Strike as we speak.
Well, when you open up Vegas, the first time you open up a hotel, me and Glenn want to be there, and we want to experience that because we know you guys are the best at really leading the way and being the first in market. So I'm excited.
Well, let's get some questions here from the audience, if you're all right with that, John. What about handling drinks? Is anything going to change in regards to that? Servers handle a lot of things. They're touching a lot of stuff. How's that work for you guys going forward?
Yeah, no, that's a great question that we talked about for a while because we still wanted people to be able to have a beverage of choice when they're sitting there at the table. Of course. So we're asking people, look, if you are going to wear the mask while you're playing in our games, just reduce the amount of time that your mask is removed from your face, right? When you're at one of our great restaurants, we're not gonna require you to wear a mask when you're eating there, right? That's where that balance of health and safety with business and those sorts of things sort of make sense, or they do make sense. I think we're looking at, or we're doing, disposable cups. We're doing one-time use mechanisms with our cocktail servers, so that once you drink from that drink and you're done with it, we can just throw it away. Those are the sorts of things that we're looking at. But we're also doing that with this idea in mind that we don't want to take away from the experience. We still want you to be able to have fun. But just like even before COVID, guys, we were providing these experiences, left and right across the entire spectrum. But there was always this element of safety and security that we wanted to provide. So you can go have fun, but in the safe experience. And so we're still going to do that. It's just going to be a couple other layers in the middle.
So from a room standpoint and a lobby standpoint, have you taken out some furniture at the room? When you're going into the room, what are you doing for a visual cue to let me know that room has been, inspected for my safety, and really it's always been clean, but now we're at a new level of clean? How are you telling me that, either a visual cue or in some kind of posting or some kind of signage?
So I think from the moment that you check in, we'll be offering services so that it reduces the amount of interactions that you have in your room. So for example, if you order in-room dining, our in-room dining is going to be delivered to your front door. They're going to knock on the door and leave it there for you to be able to get. If you ask for some sort of service that requires other sorts of drop-off, like let's just say maybe even shoe shining, that's going to go into a mesh bag, wrapped in a plastic bag, and dropped off there on your doorknob.
Awesome.
There have been a lot of questions around what we're doing inside the rooms. And I think when you think about people that are making reservations, that's what they want to know. They want to know, is my room being taken care of? Are the proper cleaning pieces on the antiviral deep cleaning, is that being done? And the answer to that is yes, it was being done before, and now it's being done a little bit more rigorously. We're also focused on areas of linen exchange. So when the guest leaves, before the next guest checks in, which we'll leave that room vacant for a specific period of time.
Excellent.
But we're going to change out the linens. We're going to change out your sheets. We're going to change out even the robes, those great robes that you have in your closet. Even if you didn't use those robes are being taken out, and fresh robes are going to be put in there. Glassware, even if you didn't use the glassware, we're taking the glassware out after each guest checks out and putting new glassware inside. shampoo bottles,
Wow.
soap, the one-time use things. We have mechanisms in place so that if we'll know if somebody has used it, but even if they haven't, we're cleaning that stuff out when a new guest comes in and we're putting new stuff in there. So there's probably 50 other things that we're doing within just the hotel room, but those are just a couple of highlights.
And how about pools and gyms? How are you handling that?
So pools, and look, that's one of the things when I think about coming back to Vegas, I want to be able to go and hang out at the pool and have a couple of beverages. So when you're looking at that, we do want to respect the 6-foot social distancing, physical distancing. So that's how the chairs and that's how the cabanas are going to be set up. If you're with a group of 2, 4, 6 people, of course, we're going to let you stay together, but we're going to make sure that parties are certainly separated, just to make sure that we do have that spacing in place. We are going to have a lot of signage posted throughout to just remind people about, when they grab the towels. We're going to have hand sanitizer there. We're going to have additional cleaning going on inside the cabanas too. So when someone leaves, before anybody else comes in, we're going to make sure we get those wipe downs done. But also just the same process we're putting in place for other food and beverage outlets. We're going to be doing that as well for our servers that are delivering that to the pool. Now on the gym, just for we're not opening the gym yet here in Mississippi. There are a couple of other things that we're working out back in Las Vegas, but I do think that that we'll be opening those in the near future. Just not. I can't give you a precise date on that.
And do you see now, I see at the end of your title is health and safety strategy. So do you see that as a department now, especially in the bigger resorts and casinos, that there will be managers of health and safety and hygiene? Do you see that as a new kind of career for people coming into our industry?
Anthony, I think it's always been there. I think we've always had everything from risk managers to safety, especially when you look at OSHA, FDA, EPA requirements. So that has always existed. I think in terms of formalizing those sorts of roles, we'll see. We'll see what happens moving forward. I think you guys have seen the same consumer sentiment surveys that we're seeing, and these things are top of mind for everybody. A lot of the cleaning pieces that we're doing are top of mind for everybody. Consumers want to see that. So I think that's something that we're definitely looking at.
And again, it's just to remind everybody, those of you who might have joined us mid-broadcast, this is all about what feels right. It's fluid. Whatever is right today isn't necessarily what's right for tomorrow. If new measures needs to be taken, they will be implemented as required. As things get a little bit easier and we have more of a grip on what's going on, maybe stuff will be taken away from that process a little bit. But John, the question that I keep getting over and over and over here is, what about chips? What about playing cards? How is all of that going to work? People are ready to go be playing blackjack. They're ready to hit the poker tables, ready to do all that stuff.
Yeah, that's a great one. And going back to what Anthony said earlier, Anthony, you can give your chips back and we'll give them back to you. You just give us the black ones, we'll give you the red ones. but
that's your whole business model right there. Anthony giving you black ones and getting back red ones.
Yeah. Look, if you're not splitting aces and eights to Anthony, we want you playing with us, okay? But looking at that's a question on the chip protocols, on the cards, on the tote boxes across the board. Nevada Gaming definitely wants a protocol or a process in place to be able to do that. So that is something that we are going to do. I think if you try to sanitize every chip that's been touched, I think that's going to be a hard one to actually do. But I think that you can do things from whenever there's a shift change, maybe every 4 or 8 hours, when large chips get brought into the cage area, where you can actually sanitize them and disinfect them there, let them dry off, and then bring them back out on the casino floor. I think that's something that's realistic. And then I think on the pit side, when you're looking at card shufflers, you're looking at card shoes, you're looking at the trays and that, we're going to have additional cleaning and disinfecting processes put in place that lean on some of our other employees that are there, both on the front of house EBS side, perhaps our supervisors that are going to be helping out with that. So, for example, I think every time somebody gets up from a blackjack table and they leave their chair, we're going to wipe that down before a new player shows up. Just like you would do at a gymnasium, you're done with the treadmill, you get up and leave, wipe it down. We're going to wipe it down as well.
Yeah, I think that
And you
sounds
know what?
fair and reasonable. In particular with the cards and stuff like that. I can't expect you guys to like be wiping down every single playing card, every hand. But by having the hand cleaning stations, by having the hand sanitizer there and accessible, I think that ameliorates the fear quotient that might go along with touching those items that other people could be touching as well.
That's
Anthony?
right.
And wearing a mask, I know playing poker, and believe me, I've lost a lot of money in your casinos playing poker. The instant sneeze, whereas when people would sneeze into their arm before, or when somebody would touch their face or put their fingers in their mouth as I'm playing cards, that was disgusting to me before. But now it's like it'll offend me. It'll be like, did you just really sneeze and then touch the cards? So those masks and personal responsibility and gloves and the things you're talking about, we have to take it upon ourselves as customers to not only keep ourselves safe, but your employees safe. So it really is twofold. And one of the things that Glenn and I have been talking about a lot is about our responsibility. It's not only the industry's responsibility, it's our responsibility. So if you're at a poker table, so let me ask you a question. If you're at a poker table, am I going to be able to order a cheeseburger now, either at the poker table, or is that done?
Right now, we're not going to allow eating on the casino floor for that. And by the way, and on poker right now, we don't
Thank
plan
you.
we don't plan on opening that just yet.
You're not planning on opening poker yet?
Not yet. We're still talking about it. So we'll see when Nevada.
And Anthony, they'll still have video poker. Calm down.
I don't play video poker. How about if I say pretty please?
Pretty please, we'll take it under advisement.
No, this might be a good time to say that we're going to be launching a special charitable poker tournament where you can play online poker against Anthony. We'll have more details about that coming later this week. Okay, so this is really interesting. People are asking so many great questions over here, but people keep saying you guys are putting in so many more expenses. How are you going to continue to be making money? How are you processing that? I know that gets a little close to home, that type of question, but everyone in our whole business is wondering, how can we continue to be profitable when we have all these other fixed expenses coming in, supplies, labor, all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and that's something that we definitely look at. Even before this began, and especially now, the health and safety of our employees and guests is first and foremost, right? So this leadership team that we got at MGM Resorts is incredible, especially in this respect. And so there is that balance around, what is right and what should we do. Also from a public policy perspective, what could you actually enforce? But going back to what I said to Anthony before, I think what we'd rather do is we'd rather have that trust reinforced both with our guests and our employees, so that they feel confident that we're not just doing the basics, we're taking it 2 steps above, and make sure that trust brings them back to our properties and to our resorts. And that's why I think we would rather do the mechanisms, the protocols, the masks, the plexiglass barriers. We would rather do that going in, take it nice and slow, and then over time, we'll see how these things take shape in the next couple of months. Because the flip side of that is you do nothing, or you do the limited piece, and consumer sentiment is basically going to tell you that, well, we're going to go with the company, we're going to go with the ones that we trust, and so that's why we're putting on investments in some of the areas that I talked about.
Yeah. It'll be, as soon as you open, it'll be instantaneous. The PR will be instantaneous. Within 2 hours, the world will know, did they get it right or didn't they get it right? So I applaud you for really going above and beyond the expectations of, I think, what your guests are going to expect. I don't think, based on what you said, anyone is going to have a concern about going to Vegas, going to one of your hotels, and having someone in your position really, really focus on that to the minuscule level is so critical.
Yeah, Anthony, I think you're right. And people have to remember, like, our friends are our employees, they're our colleagues, our family members. I've got a lot of family members involved in this too. And so my family walks on our property in our resort and they're going to stay with us. I've got that in the back of my mind. So it's for our guests, it's for our customers, but we take this personally. And so we're thinking of it from that lens as well.
Excellent. I love it. All right. Before we let you go, any final thoughts, any final messages that you'd like to give us? But before you do that, I want to say I love that you're going to drop off room service. I would have loved that even before this crisis happened, because I cannot stand making small talk with people when I'm in my room in Las Vegas. It's too much for me. So thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem, Glenn. Look, I think first and foremost, thanks for having us on. Thanks for highlighting a lot of these key things that are happening. I think as Bill, our CEO, said on a call a few weeks ago, there is no perfect answer to any of these sorts of things.
Right.
But we do think we're close, and I think that it's something where we're going to do our part. There's going to be a huge part on the consumer and the guest part as well. And I think collectively we can keep moving forward in the right sort of pace. And I think that's what the industry is going to need. And this is for us in Vegas, for travel in general, but also for our regional properties. So it's this.
So John, if I can ask you one question before we let you go.
Yep.
From housekeeping perspective, are you still going to provide daily housekeeping?
Great question.
Or is it going to be after people check out? What exactly are you doing?
Guests will have the option of putting the "Do Not Disturb" sign on their door to let us know if they want housekeeping or not.
Oh, okay. So you're basically going back to what it was before, and you're giving them the option.
That's right.
That's great.
And I think that's what's really most important as we try to make the comeback. Give customers as many choices that they can possibly make so they could feel more in control of the situation, although you're highly controlling the situation. And that's the thing that I love about your company and other casino companies is you create the appearance that everybody is doing everything they want, but everything is really closely controlled to begin with. So even though you have a lot of challenges, your team is really well set and ready to be able to move into this. I just hope that your security teams doesn't have to deal with a lot of crazy, irrational people that don't want to do their part.
Glenn, and you know, we get crazy, irrational people from time to time.
Well, I've seen them at 3 a.m. all the time. I get it.
But I'll tell you what, the training and the professionals that we have
That's right.
with our security and our surveillance team, I got to tell you, especially military background, are some of the best in the world. So
the magic trick. I'm sorry,
No.
John.
I'm sorry.
The magic trick is to get everyone in the resort to act basically the same way from a hygiene without them realizing it. Right? That's the magic trick, is to get everyone without them feeling overly encumbered, is that everyone is doing it automatically. I know there's a gym that I go to, a Y, and every single person way before this was always wiping down their equipment. There's another gym I go to, and no one did it, so I didn't do it. When I go to the Y, I wipe down every piece of equipment, because if I don't, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. And I think that's the magic trick, is to get everyone comfortable doing the right thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think some of these new things that are happening, I think they will become social norms. I think others may not. But maybe your first time on property, you look around and you notice certain things that are in place. A week or two later, you come back and then you just see everybody's doing that.
Right.
How are employees? Are you asking employees to greet each other a certain way? Meaning, like, is there no more hugs and handshakes when you greet another employee? If I'm in the locker room, am I allowed to shake another employee's hand? How's that working?
Yeah, so I think the at the very most, if you have to contact somebody, I think the elbow bump has become the not the approved norm, but we're certainly telling people no shaking hands, none of the pats on the back. Maintain your 6 foot social distancing. So that's definitely, and it is, in a hospitality company, that is a little bit different, right, than what you've been trained and the behaviors you've learned over the last 10, 15, 20 years, not just with employees, but with guests. Mm-hmm. And so those are the behaviors that we're retraining. But I think there's still the right sort of way to be able to greet and to be able to still have that esprit de corps and camaraderie. It's just sort of a little new tweak that we have to integrate.
Right, and what you may not know is Glenn and I are professional dancers, so we'll come up with a little dance, like a hello dance, so every employee can do this hello dance, and we'll send it to you.
I'd love to see it. I mean, if you guys do that, we'll come out and pick you up and bring it.
Yeah, I was. I actually used to dance underwater in the O show. So it was good. It was good stuff. At least nobody had to see me, but I still got to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, and where we didn't even talk about that. Where are we with entertainment? Where are we with Brian Newman coming back and Lady Gaga coming back? And like I want to see them back. What's going on there?
Yeah, I want Fish to come back to MGM Garden Arena for Halloween next year. Come on, man.
Trust me, we want him back too.
Of course.
Newman, Gaga, Aerosmith, the Golden Knights. We've got the Raiders coming in the next couple of months. I think those are the sorts of things that is going to take very slowly. A lot of the things we're doing now, from social distancing, line queuing, the digital innovations are going to be key to that. Entertainment, we are working on a couple of plans behind the scenes right now. But when you look at like the jurisdictions and what's permitted and what CDC and phased opening piece, that's not something obviously we're going to do in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
But it is something that we're thinking through and we're prioritizing the right way, so that when we can do that the right way, we'll be ready to do it.
Fabulous. John, thank you so much for being here. We'd love to have you come back after we kind of find a place of normalcy with all this and get a checkup from you. So hopefully you'll be able to do that. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate your time.
I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.
All right, let's let John go, and let's just get right into it. We're going to switch gears here right now. We're going to take a sharp left turn. Wow. We're going to go from the casino gaming industry back to our industry with the lovely, incredible Cindy Estes Green of Calibri. Let's bring her on. The woman with such great information, we had to have her back again. Cindy Estes Green, CEO and co-founder of Calibri Labs. Thank you so much for being here. Can't wait to hear your data download. What's going on with you today, Cindy?
Well, we got a lot of data.
Yeah.
So, we have some slides, which I know your team is ready to.
Yes, we're trying to incorporate new things into our show here. And lately we've been playing with slides. So let's see if we could bring it up.
So before we do that, can I ask a question? Before we go?
No, Anthony, you're not permitted to ask questions on your show. All right. All right. I guess he's listening to me. What's your question, buddy?
So what did you think? Did you have the opportunity, Cindy, to hear our last guest? And what's your take on what they said?
Well, I think what he described is what everyone is going through, is trying to come up with procedures and policies that are practical and can work and are not so onerous for the guest experience that it makes it awkward or difficult. And I think the guests, they're fully aware of the risks as well. And I think they're happy when the hotel or casino or whatever it is taking these steps. I think that there'll be those that are more adventurous and willing to try things in the beginning. And I think the hotels are going to get used to it like they got used to every other process they've put in place. And it's just going to become normal operating procedure, and we're going to be like this for a while until the crisis.
I totally agree, because when you go to the airport, right, you don't even think about any of that stuff anymore. It's just you do what you do. It's as soon as things become ingrained to our regular pattern of habits, it starts to feel normal. All right, let's bring back in Anthony over here. Or not. I see him up. There he is. Anthony, what happened? You must be in a bad cell zone all of a sudden, even though you're parked. All right, we got that happy smile. Let's bring on some of the.
I'm just standing here, and
yeah, it's all good. Let's. All right.
I don't know if, I didn't think you liked me anymore.
Yeah, no, anymore. I don't think any of us ever liked you, Anthony. We're just pretending. I just love being in your starry glow. That's what I love. Jeff, there we go. Thank you, Jeff. All right, so Cindy, bring us through this, and we'll try to go through it relatively quickly, but we're also going to go relatively slowly because I know we're going to have a lot of questions. So,
sure.
What are we talking about here?
So the database that we have, just to give those listeners who are not familiar with Calibri Labs, represents almost 35,000 hotels that contribute data daily or weekly to us. And this data is very detailed. It's booking level. So we get every day of every stay. And from that, we assemble performance data, and we can determine how hotels are performing at a rate category level, a channel level, length of stay, loyalty percentage, a whole bunch of ways that are not typically looked at. It's a new database, and it took us several years to put it together, but we've released a lot of new tools to tap this database in the last year. So because we have access to this information, it's very timely given the crisis at hand. It's essential for us to be able to understand the nature of the business below just a total revenue or RevPAR line. So what we have done to be able to determine the impact of the crisis as well as the recovery curves going forward, we track weekly some data points, which I'm going to share our latest update with the audience. And then I'm going to give you some market level information to kind of indicate how we're looking at individual markets, because every market will have a very different recovery curve. Right. And I think that as everybody is examining how will we recover and how will we come out of this, understanding the composition of business in each market is essential in order to be able to determine, the business that may come back slower. If that's a type of business that a market is highly dependent on, that market's recovery may be more protracted or more prolonged. So what we've done is we're looking at over 60 markets right now. I'm sure we'll add more to that. But I'm going to show you kind of a high-level overview, and then I was going to take you through some details on the Washington, D.C. market.
Excellent.
If people are interested, I have some data on Austin. But on our website, we have a industry health dashboard that anyone can look at. It's under calibrilabs.com, industry health. And so I'm going to show you some of the findings from that. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see.
Next slide.
What we did was we took all of our data and we said, how bad is this going to be? Mm-hmm. I mean, we did this in the beginning of March, and this has band used for H&LA to support their advocacy. It's been used by owners, operators, lenders. So we put together some models, and we did it. We named them for hurricane categories, category 1 through 6. And we said, if we're minus 15%, everything is on the basis of 2019 numbers. If we're minus 15, 25, 35, all the way up to minus 65, in our models, we go to minus 85, and then we also consider closings because we do have quite a number of hotels that are closed.
For example, we just got word that the Edition in Times Square is closing permanently, and there's a rumor that the Marriott Eastside in New York is closing permanently as well. So that is a reality that's happening now.
Yeah. So we've tracked the number of closings, and I'll share that data. But what we did was we ran all of these from revenue, occupancy, ADR, RevPAR, all the way down through CapEx, debt service, just to get an idea how the cash flow impacts will be. And what we learned is that even at a 15% reduction from 2019 levels, the industry goes into negative cash flow. But the more important part of this is really how we face the recovery. And we've taken these models and now built out for every market all of the business mix that would be behind each of these scenarios. And then we've played it out over the next 18, 36, and 48 months to be able to say, what is the expected recovery given the mix of business in every one of those markets? So if we go to the next slide, it'll show some of the leading indicators that we've been tracking.
Next slide, Jeff.
To give an indication of, what is the performance by rate category, because this level of detail hasn't been examined maybe at an individual property, but at an industry level, it suddenly becomes important because if group business isn't going to come back for months because of, government restrictions in markets not allowing people of, more than 30 or more than 50 to group together, right? Or corporate business because large corporate accounts are not going to go ahead and allow their travelers to be out. So that means that the dependence may be on local and regional corporate accounts, and the leisure business may come back first. So understanding how much of each of those types of business is driving the business in a market will help explain things. So we also we looked at things like airline bookings through December, how many hotels are closed, what's the group pickup look like, and what's the organic search traffic for some travel sites, just as an indicator of what might be happening.
Right,
so
okay, next slide.
I'm going to quickly go through, so anyone can look at our website again and see these updated every week, but just the high level view, just to kind of summarize it all. What we've seen is overall occupancy, as others have reported, has upticked slightly. We don't know how much of it is sustainable or related to COVID with healthcare workers or others involved. But we've gone from, and it's awful saying minus, but minus 71.3 to minus 70.1, which may sound awful, but it's moving in the right direction. So you can see that black line is moving up. That's the occupancy, and the blue line has been fairly stable, a slight downtick. But we break this out by rate category because there are really big differences. So we can quickly go through each of these and look at, for instance, group, which is the next one. And what we see with group is that both occupancy and average rate are down.
Right.
If we move to the next one, which is rack bar, we'll see we actually had quite a substantial uptick in occupancy and a slight decline in rack bar. If we move to loyalty member rate business, this is where it gets interesting. And what I'll say overall is of the categories that have gone up, besides the occupancy for rack bar, loyalty member rate and OTA are the only two categories for which both occupancy and average rate have increased over the last few weeks. And what that tells me, to distinguish this downturn from the one of 09 or 9/11, back then, the leisure, everyone expects leisure transient to be the first back. Well, in 9/11 and in 09, most of that came through the OTA channel. Well, guess what? In 2016, all of the brands started releasing book direct campaigns.
Right.
And the loyalty programs have been built out to a pretty substantial kind of program. They've had almost 4 years to do it. So today what we're seeing is there's definitely a split, kind of a horse race between the business coming back, booking through OTA and booking through the loyalty member rate. And we see more of an uptick in this direct business, which means that the recovery pattern may be very different, because before the direct channels were always disadvantaged. Suddenly we have an advantage that we're seeing.
Fascinating, because we discussed, as a matter of fact, on yesterday's show, the history of the OTAs and how they came into prominence after 9/11. But right now, the industry has gotten so smart, they're actually able to drive people in a different way directly, which maybe have a positive impact, not just on the people attending the hotels and staying, but adding a little bit more to the bottom line, because they don't have to pay out all of those fees to other services. Great.
And that's a good story. And that's a good story for the brand to tell the owners. So that uptake is a really good story. And that's how the brand shows value, because that is going to drop right to the bottom line. And right now, the bottom line is critical, because if we just heard, when MGM opens, they're going to have people cleaning seats as soon as people get up from a blackjack table. That's going to cost more money. So if you can get more direct bookings, that will all flow to the bottom line. That will help the hotel stay open and hopefully bring more employees back. So that's a great number.
Yeah. So let's move through, because I want to kind of do high level overview on these, and people are very interested in the market data. So I'd like to get through it quickly, and then
please, yes,
talk about it.
All right, so let's bring back up the chart. What's next?
Let's bring back the chart. So this is loyalty member rate. Let's move to the next one, which is corporate, which we see a downturn in both OC and average rate. Let's move to the next one, which is government. Government declined the least in rate, which should not surprise anybody, because they're per diem rates. What we've seen is less federal, which are the higher rates, and a little bit more regional and local.
Right, so that is what shows that line going down, because the local jurisdictions pay a little bit less than the federal government.
So the black is occupancy, the blue is average rate.
Yes, right.
If we move to the next one, you'll see the OTA, that big uptick in volume and a slight uptick in rate. But that's the only other place you saw that was earlier with loyalty member rate. So I am watching carefully, and I think everyone should watch carefully, because the recovery could be very different when now we've got a direct channel that's suddenly playing a significant role. So if we move to the next area of data, this is group pickup. This is an area that everybody's asked about, like when do groups start picking up? And we've been tracking this every week. We have a sample of about 1,500 hotels that are reporting data to us for future group pickup. So we're looking through the end of the year, and just the overall story. This slide shows group pickup net of cancellations. The next slide, if we can look at it, shows cancellation rates. And what we've seen is the cancellation rates have been spiking in near-term months, which is obviously not surprising. And we just had an uptick in the last couple of weeks with August. People are holding back to cancel their meetings, hoping that it is possible. As we get closer in, and it is still not possible, they're canceling. And a lot of cancellations are moving to later dates. But net, we are still not seeing much of an uptick. but it's going to come. It's just not yet because there's just too many questions around the group business.
All of that makes a whole lot of sense. And speaking of group business, I don't know about you guys, but I'm really hoping that we could all be at the AHOA conference, which is rescheduled for August. I got my fingers crossed that that'll be the first time I'm getting back on the road and on an airplane for a big official event. But Cindy, that makes a whole lot of sense. If the event is farther away, they're trying their best to make sure that the integrity of that event stays into place, and they don't want to have to pull the trigger to cancel to the last minute. All right, so what do we got next?
Yeah. So the final data point that we're tracking, which if we look at the next slide, we see closings. How many hotels are closed? So this has moved around, but generally the official number is 16.2% of the rooms in the US, or 4,900 hotels. These are hotels that are fully closed. No inventory on the OTA, no inventory on brand.com, no room night and revenue performance that's being reported. However, there are probably 3 times that number that are effectively or partially closed. So we have a lot of hotels that have 1 floor or 2 floors open, or for reasons of their debt covenant or other purposes have to keep the hotel open, or it's cheaper to keep the hotel open. We expect there's probably closer to about 15,000 hotels that are actually effectively, partially, or essentially closed. However, the number's not going up. We have not seen a big uptick, and we think we're fairly stable. And the next slide, if we can look at that, shows.
And let me just throw in there, hotels are reopening right now. I just got a press release this morning that Omni has reopened 6 properties, including Jacksonville, Amelia Island, Bedford Springs, so places all over the country, including Austin, which I know you have some data on coming up as well. Just wanted to throw that in. Please continue.
So as we look at it by chain scale, we realize that 6 in 10 luxury hotels have closed. About 4 in 10 upper upscale hotels have closed. It's only about 15% of upscale, and after that, we're single digit. So you can look at the chart to the right. I mean, the numbers of hotels closed is much higher at the upper end of the market, and a lot of that has to do with the group business and their dependence on group business. So I think that anyone obviously who wants to look at this, you can sign up and get notified. We update it every week. And then what I'd like to do is get into Washington, D.C. and kind of show a little bit of profile of what we see in terms of recovery. So if we move to the next slides, go to the next.
All right, next one.
Yep, next one. There we go. So what we did was I'm going to just look at March data. We have April data. I just didn't have the slides ready for that. And what we can see is for full year, Washington had done pretty well. It had grown in occupancy, average rate. The loyalty, Washington, D.C. has the highest loyalty percentage, one of the highest loyalty percentages of almost all markets in the U.S. That means that almost 6 in 10 of the guests who stay in a Washington, D.C. hotel are doing so in connection with a loyalty program. So now we look at March and we see what happened. We had quite a drop off in occupancy and average rate, not surprising, minus 52% just for the month of March, which was a good month. When we look at April, the numbers are going to be in the 80s or 90s. However, the loyalty percentage actually had an uptick, which was interesting because those who stayed still had a connection to a loyalty program. So if we go to the next slide, now I'm going to talk to you about the composition of the market. If you look at the pie to the right, that is the business. That's how the business shakes out in Washington, D.C. And this becomes really important to understand because when they have 30% of their business coming in through group and they have 15% of their business coming through rack, bar, and corporate, and if you look, 65% of their revenue came from group, rack, bar, corporate. Right. So you start looking at the types of business that are actually driving the market. And when that's the business that dropped off the most, Washington, D.C. is going to be a hurting market. You can see the line across each of those bars represents the U.S. So most of the major top 25 markets have performed worse than the overall U.S. In total. And you can see because the minuses, it goes down to minus 70% for group business alone. So if we go to the next slide, what we did was we took for every one of the 62 markets that we've looked at so far, we're filling in a chart where we have the actual data through March, April, it's the early stages, but we have projected going forward. So we have predicted an 18-month, 36-month, and 48-month recovery curve. And we haven't just done so overall, we've actually looked at it by rate category because it matters. Because if corporate and group is going to come back later, you need to see how that's playing out, because that's going to have a big dampening effect on the ability for the market to recover more quickly. So we've run this for every single one of those rate categories. And if we go to the next slide, and you could see those three lines represent, blue is 18-month, red is 36-month, and gray is 48-month. If we go to the next slide, we'll see we actually look at it, break it out by upper, upscale, and luxury. That's what we call upper tier. Upscale and upper mid-scale we call middle tier, and economy and mid-scale, which we call lower tier. Each of them have a very different recovery curve. What we've seen is, in 2020, each of those scenarios would mean that by the end of the year, at an 18-month recovery, the market will only be down 40%. At a 48-month recovery, the market is still down 68% by the end of the year. However, we see a big difference by by hotel tier. In the lower tier hotels, we only see a minus 25% by the end of the year, whereas in the upper tier hotels, they're still at minus 64%. Right. And if we dig a little deeper and you look at just to use this 36-month curve, the group revenue by the end of 21 is still 20% below 2019.
All of that makes sense. Are you thinking there in terms of group business, do you think that they'll be close to maybe the same amount of groups, but attendance will be lower for each of those group meetings, or will there be less people attending less group meetings, or will there be less group meetings but the same amount of people attending? Do you have any sense of that?
My sense, and this goes just in anecdotally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think that there's going to be so much restriction on the number of people who can meet. Agreed. However, it could be that some of these larger groups decide to partner with multiple hotels and they end up having meetings and, spread out within a market rather than in one place. So there's a lot of ways it could work. On the other hand, they may have 50 people come in person, and then they have better technology to be able to protect beyond that. So it's hard to know how it's going to play out. But anyway, our recovery curves break it out by tier, because if you're a lower tier hotel in Washington, D.C., your world will be very different by the end of 21 than if you're an upper tier. And it's driven, again, by the rate categories. So if we look at the next, I think the next slide after this.
Jeff, that slide, there we go. Ooh.
Yep. So I'll stop there. We have some data on Austin. I don't know if you want to look at another market or just chat now. Up to you.
I say just chat now. We'll leave people in the mid. Let's do this because we're running low on time. Cindy, your slides are going to be available for listeners, correct?
Yes.
So if you want to know more about the Austin market, if you want that to be revealed to you, well, then you got to connect with Calibri Labs and make sure you get these data points. So how can people find you? How can people get this data? And then we'll have a little chit chat on the overall stuff, and I'll let Anthony take it after that.
Yeah. So I gave the URL to your producer, so hopefully he can put it up, but it's Calibri Labs.
It's there, calibrilabs.com, right there on the screen. So go check that out, and you can get this data.
COVID-19 industry health dashboard is what you'd find.
First question from the audience.
Well, I will tell.
Yep, go for it, Anthony. Go for it. It's all good.
I said I will tell you, you're the first person to keep me and Glenn quiet for this long. So that was one of the things that I'm hearing. One of the things that I'm hearing a lot is, how about this and how about that? And everybody's got their crystal ball. What you did today was you really showed that there's a lot of analytics that goes into this and goes into opening your hotel properly, bringing staff back properly, and really understanding. So this was critical, and it was really the first time we got a comprehensive understanding of the numbers. And going forward, I know if I was running a hotel, I don't know how I would open my hotel or talk about numbers or forecasting without these numbers. So thank you very much. I learned a lot. And before we go to the audience, one of my questions, or maybe you can answer it, maybe you can't. What's your sense of the 50 or 16.2% of hotels that have closed? What percentage do you think will actually open? The vast majority, like the addition in Times Square, which was really the flagship of the Marriott Edition brand, is not opening again.
But so also financially troubled before COVID hit, just to create the correct context.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I'm just saying when it was opened, it was opened as the flagship edition, and it was financially troubled. And a lot of Times Square hotels, even though they were doing great It looked like they were doing great occupancy and average rate. They were all in trouble because of debt service and expenses getting out of control. But what is your sense of that 16.2% actually reopening?
I think a lot of them are going to reopen. I mean, as everybody has said, there's definitely a number of hotels that were troubled before this happened and are not going to survive it. There are hotels that may convert to multifamily housing or other kind of models. So there's a lot of, it just depends on kind of the financing behind it. But I think the business is going to come back. I mean, we're in the hotel business and people want to get out. I mean, you can even see it now in some markets. There's great bounce back. I mean, we're going to have 12 to 18 months recoveries in some markets, and other markets are going to be 48 months plus. So it's really important to understand the composition of the demand in a market. And even if something else can come in to compensate for the group or the national corporate for a little while, it's not going to compensate for all of it. So we have some markets that are going to be struggling for a while, and the secondary and the tertiary markets that are more dependent on either leisure or local corporate and local regional kind of drive corporate are going to bounce back much more quickly because everybody wants to get out and they have to get back to business. So there's huge demand for that. And we can't make hotel stays virtual. I mean, there'll be some virtual travel in the future, but not much of it.
So out of all the numbers that you've looked at, what's the number that surprises you the most?
Ooh, good question.
What's something that kind of like you were pretty shocked by or surprised by?
Well, we did that first chart that I showed where we did the scenarios from minus 15% to minus 65%. We actually did that the first time on March 6th. And we went minus 15 to minus 35, which was our worst case scenario. A week later, on the 13th, we sat down and we were doing this again to help AHLA with their advocacy work. We said, we have to go out to 65. And then when we started running the numbers and had to go to minus 85, that shocked me. Never in a million years.
Now, when you're saying minus 85, so the audience understands, you're saying down 85%.
From 2019 as our baseline, because no one expected 2020 to be much better than 19. So it's a great baseline to compare to. And we have, I mean, April and May are going to show up as months that are in the 80s down from 2019. Never in a million years would I have guessed we would be that far down. However, I don't think we're going to get the V-shaped recovery just because of all the restrictions on travel, unfortunately. But the recovery curves are going to range from some markets that are dependent on local regional business, 12 to 18 months, and the markets that are heavily dependent on international and big corporate accounts and big group, 48 to 60 months.
One of the questions.
Hey, let me ask you. I'm sorry. One more question, Glenn.
Uh-huh.
I apologize.
No, it's all good.
What is your sense of New York? New York being the epicenter of everything. What is your sense of New York recovery?
New York it was always an anomaly. First of all, they were running 92% occupancy and the rates were never growing. So, I mean, that was already an anomaly. Mm-hmm. It's going to change. And I think it's going to be a tougher recovery again because of if we get a vaccine and suddenly things revert back to normal, I think it'll come back pretty quickly. It's still New York. So it's not like it's going to, disappear. I mean, when 9/11 happened, everybody was asking the same question. Oh my God, what's going to happen with New York? It came back. So it will come back. I just think that because we have this health and safety overlay on top of a recession, it's just going to be slower.
Right. And one of the things that did help New York come back is supply did exit the market. Developers realized that, hey, we could turn these things into condos and we can make some more money doing that. So that helped bring the supply back, which I think in turn created the dynamic where developers really wanted to develop. Plus, the influx of select service hotels for the first time in the city at that time really took off and kind of changed the dynamics, which is why I think more recently we had trouble getting rates to continue to climb upward to New York because there was such a panoply of options. So many hotels opening. If you talk to our buddy Bruce Ford over at Lodging Econometrics, the pipeline has been insane with hundreds of hotels coming into New York over the last few years. People want to know, Cindy, and we're getting so many comments. It's hard for me to go back and find them all, but people want to know. We had on Lisa Cecchio, who runs marketing with Wyndham Hotels and Resorts last week. She's like, drive to business, drive to business, drive to business. Yep. Do you have any data to show that, or are you just feeling anecdotally that that's where we're going as well as Anthony and I?
Oh, no, we have data.
Excellent.
I mean, we have data. We have
Good.
972 markets and
Have
submarkets.
you met her before, Glenn? Have you met Cindy?
I'm just trying to give her an easy out in case she doesn't have all of this data at her fingertips, but I'm
We got all
glad
the
she
data.
does. Let's hear. I want to hear all about it, Cindy.
So the thing that's really interesting also, you ask what surprised me, and maybe it shouldn't have been a surprise, but the extended stay market, which most people realize has done incredibly well. We're about in an hour, when I finish this broadcast, we're going to release a special report showing how the extended stay business has done so well, and even splitting it between kind of lower tier and upper tier. So I think that there are markets and there are categories of business that have actually, they're not just recession proof, they're pandemic proof, we learned. Who knew? So I think that to understand, again, you have to understand the composition of business in each market. You have to understand what makes the market tick. And then you'll be able to make better projections as to what's going to happen. So local, corporate, and regional business, drive to market business, all of the markets that are dependent on that kind of business will absolutely come back more quickly and will do pretty well.
Excellent. I just put up a we just put up a big compliment for you. I love hearing Cindy speak. She's the Yoda of data for hotels. You certainly are, indeed. Anthony,
so just to that on the market, I want to make one more point. We're
go for it.
Going through about 500 of our markets and doing some analysis to kind of determine what category those markets are in. So we're actually, kind of taking a holistic view of all markets and saying which ones are more likely to be driven by this kind of rate category business, right. Which ones, because it isn't just by chain scale. It isn't just that the select service are doing better, even though in many markets they are. I mean, talking about New York.
Right.
New York is going to struggle no matter what kind of hotel you have. I mean, there's still going to be problems. I mean, the extended stay will be the most resilient. But so I think that stay tuned, because we're going to be coming out with sort of categorizing markets to be able to determine which ones are more likely to recover more quickly based on the composition of their demand.
So to take all of that information that you said and to do a total disservice, I'm going to synthesize it into about 10 seconds. So things have sucked. Things have sucked worse than ever before, but things are getting better. They're moving in the right direction. And while we're using, while you're using data a lot of times to show what's going on in the entire country, it's really at the end of the day a street corner business. And anything that you hear here is just really to get out there and inspire you and give you a chance for opportunity. But what's happening in your neighborhood, what's happening in your community is where you need to focus your efforts on. You might be recovering quickly. You might be recovering a little bit slower, but these are the tools that you need to understand where you're going, create a benchmark for you, and allow you to get out there and work even harder to make sure that you could build your business back up. I think that's a fair assessment of what's going on. Yeah. All right. Good. Woo. Anthony?
One of the things I always say, one of the things I always say is I've never made a decision in my life. The numbers make decisions.
That's right.
The facts make decisions. And I think that that's really important. And what came out of this to me is look at the facts, look at the information, look at the numbers. The numbers will help you make those decisions. So
all right,
thank you very much.
Speaking of more numbers, one more quick question for you. Beach cities, how do they look? Airport hotels, any insight on that, please?
So the beach markets that are drive friendly, those that have large markets nearby where they can get drive traffic are going to do, I think, great. And I think especially because there's so much pent up demand. I've talked to owners of hotels in airport markets who are running in the 60% occupancy range.
Wow.
So it just depends. We have on our website, I didn't show the slide from it, but we're tracking, I think, 12 or 14 destinations to look at airline bookings going to 2020. They're starting to move up. I mean, we're still not seeing net positive, but it's starting to move up. So I think, again, it's going to be very varied. It's going to be a very uneven recovery based on the nature of the business coming in. And the more you have that's international or large corporate accounts that are going to have big, corporate policies that restrict a lot of travel, you're going to have to find alternatives for a couple of years or until we get a vaccine.
Yep. Makes sense. Anthony, any final thoughts before we get some from Cindy?
Again, thank you so much for the data. I think it's incredibly important that people are looking at it and making decisions based on it. So I know how much work goes into it, and I truly appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.
Hey, thanks. That's it. That's your final statement.
Oh,
How about a shameless plug? Calibri Labs. Go to
Calibri
Calibri Labs
We have-
/industry-health. Yes.
it's really, really helpful to be able to predict forward and to be able to look at these recovery curves. Everybody's forecasting now. Everyone is trying to guess, and nobody's got a crystal ball. We don't have a crystal ball. We just have a lot of data. And we're not just looking at the historical data. As the new data comes in, we're updating our assumptions all the time. But you have to understand the composition of the demand in your market. And these recovery curves that we're producing for each market give a floor and a ceiling, which will help a lot to just make sure you're kind of in the ballpark for where you think your business will fall, and then tracking it as it happens to see how you're doing, if you're getting your share of the kind of business that's coming back. So that's all I can do. The more informed you are, the better decisions you're going to make, and we can help. So.
The data creates the decisions, and thanks to Cindy Esther Screen and the good folks over at Calibri, they have got the data you need. So thanks so much for being here, Cindy. We got to have you back. Man, I almost wish you were here tomorrow so we could have that extended stay talk, but let's get you back on real soon to talk all about that.
Look for that special report. It'll be out this afternoon.
All right, beautiful. And if people want to get it, how could they get that special report? Just go to the website, or is there an email list that they can sign up for?
Posted on our website. There's going to be a press release. It's going to be hopefully in a lot of places where you can get to it.
All right. So as soon as I get the information, I'll put it up on novacancynews.com. You can find it there, or Calibri Labs. Cindy, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time. Boy, oh boy, another great show, Anthony, from the casino gaming industry to what's happening in our business. I'm really feeling like the tide has turned in terms of attitude with the people that are on the show.
Well, just from an overall show, I've got to say this is, if not our best show, one of our best shows, because of the guest and, guest make a show. And it's not us, it's the guest. And what Cindy did, if you're not his numbers person and you're sitting listening to that, you may say that's mind numbing. Okay, for me, that's why I didn't really interrupt her at all, because for me, I was like,
you're saving it to interrupt me.
Like, I'm addicted to numbers, and so if you're a numbers person, if you're a revenue manager, if you're a director of sales, if you're a general manager, if you're an asset manager, you have to go back and listen to that a couple of times because it's so critical. Her insights are based on numbers and based on facts, not based on hearsay. And there's too much hearsay in the market. Going back to MGM and going back to the Gaming Association, it was all fact. It's what they're doing today. And to see that Vegas is doing it in such a very slow and methodical way, to have one of their senior people, one of the most senior people in the entire industry and entire company out in where was it, Mississippi, basically hand-holding that opening makes me feel good. Because that's what I want. I want the executive literally opening up that door. I want the executive looking at the employees and saying, hey, can you make sure that people are washing their hands? That's the level that we need to do to get the trust back to our industry. So I thought it was just an absolute home run show. And again, to you as a producer and the producers behind us, just an incredible show. So it was just fascinating for myself as well.
I just imagine how good this show would be if they got some good hosts for it. I can't even begin to think about how good that would be. Meanwhile,
please,
go for it, Anthony.
So guys, so tomorrow at 2:00. I say 1:30 or 2:00. I'm actually not sure. I think it's 1:30 or 2:00 tomorrow. I should know. Please go to
1:45 tomorrow.
Okay. So tomorrow, please sign for our webinar. Go to hospitality.com or hospitalitysuccess.com, or go to our Facebook page at Hospitality Success, and you can sign up for our free webinar. We're talking about how we're going to open hotels and how you can look at revenue. And I've learned a lot today to bring to that webinar as well. So please sign up for our webinar. We already have several hundred people signed up, and there'll be more webinars. But right now, tomorrow, please go at 2:00. Sign up on Facebook or hospitalitysuccess.com.
Awesome. I love it. And of course, guys, don't forget, sign up for our newsletter. If you haven't done that, what are you waiting for? Text the word hotel to 66866 and get all of the news that you need every Sunday night. All of these shows in one convenient location, other news and information as well. Really appreciate you all being here, guys. And don't forget, we got a lot of great stuff that's coming up, not just what Anthony talked about. Be sure to check out, I'm doing a new video news series a few times a week. You can check that out on my different feeds over there if you want to hear some news and analysis about all the breaking news that's happening out there. And I've got some more announcements that we'll be making soon, including how you're going to be able to play poker against one and only Anthony Melchiori. I can't wait to see how that's going to go down. In fact, I'm going to be hosting that event, and you guys are going to be able to participate in that event. So we'll have a lot more information. I think it's time for our big send-off, Anthony. You ready?
Well, I think I want to say two things. One, we will actually be posting things about sponsorships because we're getting a lot of inquiries about sponsorships and how that works.
I just got a couple today.
Number two, please do not go. Please go to GoFundMe at USA Hospitality Strong and donate to our hospitality industry, to our frontline workers who are out there getting ready to ensure that we're ready to travel safely. So please go to GoFundMe, USA Hospitality Strong, and donate whatever you can.
Excellent. And don't forget, guys, we really, really appreciate you being here. And you've got one life, so blaze on. And
thanks for checking in.